Warning, the following show is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. We are back. Coffee with the Johns, episode 5, season 2. Can you hear me now?
It wasn't you that had the problem. It was me last time.
Yeah, just making sure if sound is coming in good, give us a little thumbs up, people. Just testing it out a little bit. But today we have a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of crazy stuff, mainly real estate related. Sometimes, we try to cover what's affecting the market, what's affecting everything. And a lot of times it's politics, right? Because politics, policies, they affect the way we invest. They affect what we do. But this week we actually have a lot on the real estate market and some crazy stuff that San Antonio is doing that I am eager to hear what you think. So make sure to give us a like, give us a little thumbs up on YouTube. It helps us out tremendously. And if you happen to have any social media account, just take a little screenshot and share it on social. Have your friends over, because it's time to really educate the public. Because the stuff that we're going to cover today, it's things that affect everybody, not just people in real estate. It's going to affect everybody, anybody that owns a business. So this is not just real estate related. And the more educated we all are, the better it's going to be for everybody involved. So with that being said, I am your host, Jonathan Barbera. And with me as always is our co-host, Mr. John Barra.
There it is. Can I talk now?
That's for you, man.
Did you see me catch myself? I was like, yeah.
Welcome. How's it going, sir? Good week?
Yeah, pretty good so far.
Pretty good so far. I think it's been a great week. I mean, we took marketing back in-house, and we've been doing it for all of, a month, and we already got a few deals going. We already bought a house. We're picked up a piece of land. I mean, shaping up really good.
Yeah, 2021. I mean, that's the thing about the marketing is it takes so long to get going, and then you just can't stop because you stop, it stops immediately.
Oh,
but if you it takes so long to build it back up, get those lists, get the manager, get the mark, get the tracking. It just takes a lot. So a lot of that seems to be starting to come together. Thank God.
Yes.
There's a lot of frustration the last 2 months, but hey.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of things that I think we said this before, and we took for granted. We were doing very well. We are usually very terrible at marketing. We've been very terrible at marketing, which is why we haven't done it for the last 4 years. But one thing that I realized, and we both have realized, is that when you're doing well is really when you need to start planning for what can bring me down, right? That's the question I think that we failed to ask ourselves. If we were our competition or something was to happen, what can bring us down? And yes, granted, nobody, I think, anticipated a freaking pandemic, worldwide pandemic, shut down everything. But that is part of that exercise, right? You got to plan for, what if Godzilla comes out and fucking starts stomping on Texas?
Godzilla starts stomping on Texas.
Hey, I don't know, man. Anything is possible. But, one thing that we did realize is that when you're doing good, if you don't start planning for what happens if everything that gets flipped upside down, when that happens, you're pretty much going to be screwed. Luckily, you and I we do Coffee with the Johns. We do the market updates. We do all that mostly for us, right? We do most of that stuff for us because we are always paying attention to trends that are coming.
Well, the only reason we did this show is because we'd spend so much time sitting there talking and BSing about topics. That was like, we should just record it and just put it on the internet and see if people will like watching us go back and forth. And everyone thinks we're arguing because we both speak in all caps when we're passionate about something.
And funny enough, we've always talked about, it'd be cool if we had some GoPros throughout the office, just always recording so it captures, because we tend to sometimes out of the blue some really good conversations and some really good strategy sessions develop. But then I was like, if it was capturing everything we say, I don't know if it'd be good for business. We have very dark humor, sense of humor, and
you do.
Come on, you laugh.
I laugh, but it's also more laughing at you, not with you.
Yeah. So with all that being said, I hope everybody's having a great week. Comment below where you're listening from. What is it that you focus on in real estate? I'm really interested. Put it in the chat below, because if you use the chat correctly, this is some great networking that you can do. Put in there, what is it that you focus on? What is it that you do in real estate? What is it that you're needing help with? What are you looking to do? And the people that jump on, I mean, we have a gentleman on here, Tommy Ray, who is, I tell everybody, he is a wealth of knowledge. I do feel bad because I think we've been saying his praises quite some time, and I feel bad because he's a really nice guy, and I think he's gonna get flooded with people just asking him for shit. So sorry, Tommy, if that happens. I'm telling you, I think you need to set up a little system to start charging for consulting. But yeah, wealth of knowledge. And then, we always have people jump on from all different spaces. So go ahead, jump on the chat, put what it is that you focus on. What do you do? What are you looking to do? What are you struggling with? What curiosities or questions you have about real estate? Put it in the chat and just kind of develop that back and forth with people and build those connections. So I wanted to jump in because this is something that, to me, last week I get home after Coffee with the Johns, and Val tells me, okay, she's like, it was really good, but you sometimes give too many of my aggressive opinions.
Aggressive opinions.
I guess that's what I would call it. And then I was shocked because I was like, you have no idea how much I held back. Like, because
that's how you normally are. The past 5-6 years we've been working together. So like somebody makes a comment like if they even knew how far it could go.
Yeah, because people are like, oh my God, you can't believe you said that. I'm like, that's because that's the nicest thing I could think of saying without hurting somebody's feelings. And it's not that I'm trying to be an asshole or things. It's that I am a passionate person. I do have emotions. And especially when we talk about the economy, entrepreneurship, the businesses, everything that's been happening to businesses and entrepreneurs lately. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how pissed off all of that makes me. Because like I said before, when people are losing their businesses because of no fault of their own, yeah, and because they're simply not too big to fail, that's just, to me, I mean, as business owners, the amount of work that we put into this, we sacrifice a lot for our business. You know what I mean? We sacrifice a lot to do what we do, and to have to lose it, and then nobody gives two shits about it, and it's not even your fault. I mean,
it's ouch. Rough. I mean, you see a lot of that going on in multiple places all over the country, and it's terrible. Yeah. But and you're passionate about it, but it's all, I mean, what can you do but decides to try to spread the wealth of knowledge why we hold these shows? Is it going to say, hey, make sure you know what's going on. Don't read just the headlines, multiple sources, multiple places you get the information from, and stay educated and make your own opinions.
Yeah, I mean, just like everything, just like there is a lot of bad news, if you're a true entrepreneur, is just opportunities, right? Whenever there's bad news, there's something like that, it's just opportunities down the line. But I wanted to start off with this article. Homeless camp in downtown San Antonio shut down by the city. So the camp at I-35 in Brooklyn, which is, I think, the one that you've been talking about. I-35 in Brooklyn. That's right by Commerce, East Houston, where you get off. That's the one that I'm pretty sure you've been talking about, because that's Brooklyn, the street that you can never remember. Remember?
The street I can never remember?
Yeah, because you're always like, oh, what's that street we get off of? So Brooklyn. Anyway.
Yeah,
let me tell you what happened. So, city crews cleared out a homeless camp in downtown San Antonio Wednesday and cleaned the area following a string of violent crimes and health hazards. About 50 tents at the overpass in Interstate 37 in Brooklyn. 50 tents. I mean, nuts. And SAPD has responded to numerous incidents, including shootings and stabbings. In one case, homeless person was set on fire. God. Yeah. So Jesus. Police have also responded to reports of extortion, with homeless people forced to pay for protection. We have a homeless mob going on. It's very interesting. And during the visit last week, Reuters the news people, Reuters, said that the outreach options were offered to a number of veterans at the camp. Haven for Hope also offered a ride to its shelter in a van. Many homeless who are forced to move out said they were frustrated about having to leave. Forced to move out. Exactly. They're upset to leave. So this is what they said. One of the city representatives for San Antonio said. This abatement is consistent with the priorities of the city's recovery and resiliency plan. The city has added resources to make emergency shelter COVID compliant, provide more housing, more rehousing programs, and more on-the-ground outreach. The city invests $32 million annually to aid persons experiencing homelessness. These funds provide operations and support funding for partner agencies' outreach and cleanup program. The discussion, so the discussion came out that they are going to be looking at buying a hotel for the homeless population. So if you guys remember, we talked about this last week that Austin is 8 or 9 hotels in already for the homeless population, with just 2 of them costing them $3.5 million a year to maintain. All of that is our money, right? All of that is taxpayer.
Fantastic. It's like, hey, we create this pandemic goes, and we take advantage of the hardest hit industry, the tourism and hotel industry. And now that the values are substantially lower, we're going to go ahead and buy them at fire sale prices. So then we can put this problem over here.
So here's my thing. So this whole thing of buying the hotels came about because of, quote, the displacement of the homeless camp in downtown I-35, displacing dozens of people who lived there. Are they homeless or do they live there? What's going on? Because they're homeless, right? But they themselves are telling you, why are you kicking us out? This is our home. They're choosing to be there. They're giving, and I'll put, like I said, I'll put these articles after the show goes live and everything. It's going to be in the descriptions below. Sometimes these articles get too lengthy, the links and everything. You only get a certain amount. So if for whatever reason, just head over to our website. On there, I put all of the articles. But the homeless people are complaining. They were talking about they put $32 million annually to aid this, right? Then they have programs, they have vans, they have people consistently going to these homeless camps saying, hey, who needs a ride somewhere? Who needs help with the services? Here are the services that we provide. Here's everything that we have available to you. Who needs any help? Who needs any services? And the homeless people are telling them, nah, we're good. Leave us alone. We're fine. You understand? And now the city is going out of their way. So the city is currently already leasing 2 hotels in San Antonio to help the homeless population. One of them, 300-room hotel, is operated by Haven for Hope as an extension of its shelter, while the other serves as a safe place for homeless people with suspected or confirmed cases of COVID to safely isolate. So, I mean, this stuff is the stuff that like just fires me up in a very bad way because, and please don't get me wrong, I am not trying to be insensitive. I understand this kind of triggers people a certain way. That's not my intent with this. My thing is that the homeless people themselves are telling you that they're not homeless, that they are choosing to be there, that they are happy where they are. The police have answered to a shit ton of crimes, right? There's drugs, there's
shooting, stabbings, lighting people on fire,
extortion,
mob activity.
Yeah, and then let's add all the health hazards that's probably there, right? I mean, COVID is probably like the least of their worries.
Yeah.
So Val was reading an article that she was talking about how they found a young-ish girl, I think, early 20s, maybe late teens, with a newborn. She was homeless and she was there, and the police came to like try to help out and everything. Help out. I don't know. Did they try to help out or were they just by force? Who knows? But the point is that the chick resisted. She's like, no, leave me alone. We're good. So it's like, yet we're spending millions because you know how efficient the city is at budgeting anything. So we're spending millions of taxpayer dollars for all this. I mean, this is insane. Like, this is just nuts. What the hell is there? What options do we have here with homeless people?
Well,
I mean,
Tommy Ray puts in here says time for a free bus ride to California where they can have better weather and a more tolerant and welcoming people.
well, isn't that what they've been doing? Isn't that how we got so many homeless people? They put them on a bus from like Arizona or some shit.
Well, we've heard articles. I've read and heard and seen things in the past where, like, yeah, some of these cities and municipalities in their budgets, they literally just pass in fancy terms of relocation projects, and they literally just put them on planes and ship them to other cities and just kind of constantly move homeless population around. But I mean, I'm not, I say, choose words carefully. That homeless camp was getting very large, and it is getting substantially larger every week because I drive down that way to go check out our new builds down there. And I remember seeing like 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, and now they grew all the way up to 50, and it was expanding over streets. So I mean, it is good to see that they're cleaning that up and they're relocating them to better areas, hopefully to these hotels or wherever it may be, because it was like right as you pull into downtown, the first exit off of 281 137, you get off that way, the first thing you see is this giant homeless camp, and it wasn't like clean by any means. There was just piles of trash and stuff all over the place. So I mean, it's a very grimy, dirty place to where, like, yeah, like you said, I could only imagine what other stuff they're fighting in there besides just COVID, as far as like disease goes. And it's just that to where like now they're talking the state and municipalities are going to get like billions of dollars in bailouts for them. And like, where's that stuff going to go? I was like, are they going to take this and now buy more hotels to house people and just inefficiently spend taxpayer dollars on stuff? And like, that's my problem. It's not trying to assist homeless people. I'm all for that, trying to get them programs to get them back into society and being productive. And if they don't want to help, then they shouldn't be getting services at all. It's like, hey, I'm not going to give you any more assistance unless you're actually trying to be a productive member of society. And then the fact that they're so inefficient at doing it. It's like $32 million it's a good chunk of change. And now they're taking it's 10% of that just to run one hotel with 300 rooms.
Yeah.
It's like, it takes you that much money to maintain only 300 people or 300 rooms.
And then the thing becomes, I don't know if you ever saw the movie New Jack City with Wesley Snipes, Ice-T. It's an old movie.
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. So in that movie, there's a part where Ice-T goes to pick up Chris Rock, and he's in this project, and it's like a big ass crack house building. That's how I picture these hotels turning out to be, right? Because my thing is like, in order for it not to turn out that way, who's gonna be policing it? Who's maintaining the hotel? Like, then now you're putting more people at risk
every week.
Exactly. Like, what's that gonna look like? So where I'm going at is, this is costing the city millions, tens of millions of dollars a year, if not more.
That's not costing the city. It's costing us, like the people that live in this city.
Well, we fund the city. Yeah, exactly. So it's costing us tens of millions of dollars a year to do this. And again, I am not saying, you know, screw the homeless or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that you have services. You have a ton of opportunities. You have vans that are going around to all these homeless camps, trying to help people, trying to get them whatever they need. And they're telling you they don't care. They don't want it. They're choosing to be homeless. So it's like, why are we doing this then? Why is it that force of kind of like, we're the government, we're here to help, right? It's like, you know, why force it and cost the city and cost us tens of millions of dollars that could be put into a million other things, businesses that are struggling and failing because of this, that are losing, you know, we talked about it last week. 45% of the US GDP comes from small businesses. 50% of employment comes from small businesses.
Yeah.
And small businesses right now are the ones taking the biggest hit, and majority of them are not even coming back. So why not deploy that money to that, to help these businesses stay in business?
Well, that's what I hope that a lot of these, with this like new package that look like they're going to ram through the government, is that $350 billion going to state and local governments. I'm hoping that money doesn't go to government bloat and just trying to hire more people and expand service to where like they create incentive programs to give to small businesses, where it's like on a local level, it is much easier for a municipality that's here in San Antonio to help smaller San Antonio businesses versus just a federal government trying to regulate a one size fits all for everybody kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm hoping that's where that goes and not just like, oh, nope, we're going to give all this money to just sustain ourselves and to give the capital to make us grow, which I'm hoping that happens, but I don't have faith in that because, like you said, we're the government. We're here to help. Hide your pocketbook kind of scenario.
Pretty much.
But, I mean, it does suck, but I'm hoping that's where it goes.
Yeah. So. Well, and then here's another thing to kind of piggyback on that. No, stop it with your pop-ups. Fiesta Commission delays the San Antonio's biggest party and cancels the parade. So we have Fiesta coming up, right? Usually around April. And Fiesta, if you're not from San Antonio or Texas or live in a bubble, this is one of the biggest events that San Antonio has. It brings in a ton of tourism, right? It helps the small businesses. It moves a lot. It moves a lot the economy, the parades, everything. The same people in San Antonio go nuts every year for Fiesta with the medals, with all of the things that are going on. So my thing is like, now we have this happening, right? We have Fiesta that's being canceled. Fiesta's not being canceled, so it's getting postponed till June. And it's getting postponed till June. And then you have, Mayor Ron Nirenberg says delaying Fiesta 2021 until June puts safety first, and it is the right move for our community. Through the ongoing vaccination program and our continuing efforts to suppress COVID-19, we are working to be in a better position by June. My thing is like, okay, so Fiesta, huge moneymaker for the economy, huge moneymaker for, the local people, tourism, all of that. Now it's being delayed again. Who knows what's going to happen? I have read an article, I think it was you that shared it with, Mr. Know-It-All, Dr. Fauci, saying how the vaccines, like, it's just going to take for freaking ever for the vaccines to do any effect. And then, even then, like, they raised how many people even need to get vaccinated.
It used to be like 60 to 70. Now he's saying, oh, it really needs to be 75 to 85.
Exactly.
And then he even said in there that it's like there's so much misinformation of what is the true number. He's like, oh, less than 2% of the U.S. population has been vaccinated. I'm like, that's less than 10 million people you're talking about. But you hear stuff from like the Biden administration saying we've administered 25 million. We're getting close to 30 million vaccines. Like, so now we're nearing 10%, but Fauci's saying it's only 2%. So it's like, who's right? Now it comes down to, well, everyone should be wearing double masks. We should be wearing triple masks. And it's like, oh, okay, people. Like, at the end, when we're starting to get stuff rolling out, now you're coming out saying everyone should wear double and triple masks. Like,
your mask needs a mask.
Yeah. I saw a little meme that's like, oh, more masks help. And it was just a picture of like somebody wearing like 25 masks, like stacked onto their face. And it's like,
it will help because they'll cut off your oxygen enough where you just end up dying from asphyxiation. And then they'll say, no, he had COVID. Gotcha. Yep. But they can't, they decided to cancel both of the Battle of the Flowers and the Fiesta Flamboy Parade. So they canceled both parades and they're postponing it. So he's saying that we're going to be in a much better position by June. Fauci does not agree, right? And, he's the guy that knows everything. And so my question is, if we're not, like, what is he measuring as better position, right? In June, we're going to be in a better position. Okay, what does that measure look like? What does a better position look like? Right now, we're not in a better position. Why? What are the numbers that you're looking at? And what do the numbers need to be by June for us to be in a better position so the parade can, not the parade, but the event can actually happen? And then at that point, like, what's that look like? Are businesses going to be allowed to open, bars, restaurants, everything, to, if we do have tourism, to take care of that?
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like the small businesses that just thrive during those times. Like, this is the second year in a row. Now they're saying, like, obviously it was canceled in 2020, and now 2021 comes around, and they're like, we're just going to kick it and push it and postpone it even further. Well, that's what they did last year. They didn't just cancel it. They moved it to, like, June. Then they moved it to October. Then they just said, okay, well, we're not having it this year. Like, some of these businesses, and then, like, these PPP programs that they're putting out only covers 2.5 months of payroll. That doesn't include overhead expense, the things you need to actually run your business. So yeah, you can sustain your payroll, but like payroll is your biggest expense, but then it's all of your rent that comes into that. Everything plays into that to where it's like, I'm sorry, I just covering my payroll doesn't, after an entire year of not having my income cut off, doesn't supply me the money and capital needed to sustain. I'm not like these massive conglomerates. I mean, I can switch to this article now that about ExxonMobil, that you were kind of making fun of me, like, oh, that seems like an article you would do. But what shocked me about it, if I can find it, there we go. ExxonMobil reports a $20 billion loss, fourth straight quarter in the red. $20 billion in one quarter. So they're losing over last year. They lost, getting close to $100 billion. And it's like, these companies can't afford. They have the payroll, they have the cash flow, they have the system set up, they have the liquidity access to sustain these things. Like you alluded to at the very beginning of just like these small businesses don't have that ability, because like, when is a bank going to lend you money? Not when you need it. They'll give you money when it's like, oh, hey, you're a super secure business, everything's going fine, we'll give you money. But then when times get rough, it's all cut off. So it's like, we're not these companies that can't sustain like years without, or months and years without capital access and with all this money. And what blew my mind about it is, where was it? That revenue, however, came up on a short of expectations of $46.54 billion. The street consensus was $48.76. So $2 billion less than what they anticipated. But the shares of ExxonMobil, on the news that they lost $20 billion in a quarter and didn't meet revenue expectations, the shares went up 1.6%. So to me, that just blew my mind of like, what? They lost fourth quarter straight in the red, lost $20 billion and stuff in a quarter, and then the stock price goes up. And it just shows like this money that are pumping into the market. Where is it going? It's going into the stock market. It's going into places that these mass conglomerates can self-feed on this money to sustain by selling stock and getting liquidity into cash to sustain their business. So that is just what just blew my mind.
And it wasn't the Reddit people involved with the
no, apparently not Reddit for ExxonMobil.
Oh, that's right. They're there for the little guy.
Yeah.
Yes. One thing I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to get your thoughts and opinion on, is I was actually watching, the Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, the second part with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that movie, and I remember back in 2008, 2009, when all of this happened and the bailouts and everything, one of the biggest terms that was being thrown around was moral hazard, right? You know, moral hazard, for those of you that may not know, is pretty much what it means is that if we bail these companies out that made terrible decisions, what's going to be there to make sure that they don't do it again, right? Because if we're bailing them out, what's to say that they won't do it again now, right? No. That, we're showing them like, hey, you can be stupid, make terrible bets, terrible decisions, and we got you taken care of. So there was big talks, and from the government themselves, from Ben Bernanke at the time, he was, he wasn't a huge fan of the whole bailing out these banks that did very speculative bets and all of this, right? Obviously, as we all know, they bailed them out anyway. Way back when $800 billion was considered to be a lot of money.
What are we eclipsing on, like 5 trillion?
Just last year alone
on this one.
But so he was against it, moral hazard, all that. What I think happened is that they printed all the money. They gave it to a ton of banks, everybody that did all the stupid shit. They give it even to banks that didn't need it because they're like, well, it doesn't matter. You still got to take this money because you got to put it in the market, you got to deploy it, whatever it is. And they realize that, okay, nothing bad happened, right? We talk about this moral hazard and everything, but all right, the economy is still good. Look at the stock market, right? They gauge the economy based on the stock market. So now they're not thinking twice about moral hazard anymore. It was like the experiment, the question, the curiosity was answered back in 2008 when they did it, and they realized that nothing bad happens, nothing bad, right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote, because the measuring stick that they use keeps being changed, keeps getting moved.
The average person was able to still go to Starbucks and get their Froco Moco caramel chai latte with white foam.
We're not making fun of anybody that likes those, okay?
But they can people go to their Starbucks or they could get guacamole on their Chipotle burrito and be okay. But that just didn't do anything to where what that did is it gave money to people that had assets and inflated asset prices.
Yeah.
So when you look at wage growth, like it was still stagnant. It really didn't go anywhere. And like it came back down to where like, yeah, it made life continue, but it exacerbated that wealth gap that is even the bigger problem as they're talking now.
And then you look at that, right? The wealth gap and all of this is that the stuff that I look at, especially last year, you and I would have a lot of arguments because you were like, no, not last year, 2019. I forgot. 2020 is like that freaking lost year. But in 2019, you and I kind of get into discussions about you're like, oh, the economy is doing so great. And I was like, I feel the economy is propped up. All this is fake. You're like, but look at the data, right? Because you love data. You look at the data and all that. But what I looked at was more of how can the economy be doing so great when people are needing 2 to 3 jobs to make a decent living, right? And I'm not saying survive. Yes, in this country, you can survive with less, right? But what are we talking about? You don't have shit. You don't have quality of life, right? You just have survival. And which by all means, of course, is better than nothing, but that's all you have. But to have quality of life, you do need 2, 3 extra incomes, right? And even then you have quality of life, but you're probably in debt up to your ass. You probably, you're living paycheck to paycheck. You probably don't have much of a savings. You definitely don't have any investments.
Well, a lot of that stuff it's their own damn fault. To where people they try to keep up with the Joneses. Like that goes back all the way back to the education system and parenting of just saying like, hey, you need to go buy things. You need to go buy stuff. You need to compete with the person next door. To where like if you work in 2, 3 jobs and you have a basic education, and you're making 50 grand a year, 40 grand a year, you can save your way up to having a good life. It's just, you don't go buy the Frappuccinos for $6 every freaking morning. It's like you get a coffee maker from Walmart for less than $20 and you make your own coffee.
How dare you?
It's just like they could do it themselves if they wanted to, but like the discipline isn't there. The moral pain that they feel that they're inferior makes them go out and spend. And put it on credit card and try to live a life that they don't want to live. And that comes down straight to education and parenting of around personal finance. I don't need, where am I ever going to use the Pythagorean theorem that you learn in algebra? But I don't use that on a daily basis, but I need to know how to use a credit card and I need to know how to balance a checkbook. I need to understand investments. And you don't talk about that at all in school, but man, I can know 3, 4, 5 triangle. It makes a right angle. Like, come on. So that's where I take that back to. And I get very frustrated with people saying, oh, these people with these jobs, they shouldn't have to work this hard to sustain a living. It's like, or they could just not overspend and buy a bunch of fake things to sustain a life. How about that?
How about that? Well, and that's also the thing with that I talk about, that we talked about even last week. I came as, we were immigrants to this country and everything. And what I grew up, as immigrants, we hung out with more immigrants, right? You kind of hang out with your people.
Like.
Yes. So a lot of our friends and all that were also immigrants in this country. And one thing that we talked a lot about was the fact that as much as I would remember our parents and all that saying how much they loved our countries, right? How much they loved Argentina or the friends we were with at the time, Costa Rica, and all these, how beautiful the country is and everything. But you can't make a living there. You can't survive. It's just, communism, damn near socialism, where they keep the poor, just keep giving them enough to kind of just live. but there's no quality of life. There's no, anything
You're
else.
existing.
Yeah, but here, the reason they all came here, we all came here, was because there's that promise that if you work and you bust your ass, you're going to have a future. You're going to have whatever it is that you want. But not for free. You got to work. You got to work. You got to bust your ass. You got to earn it. You understand? Simply being American doesn't, and it shouldn't entitle you to shit. You understand? Like, you need to earn your life.
Being alive and being, no matter where you're at in the world, does not entitle you to anything. It entitles you for your ability to advance your life, make your life better. If you're not happy, you have the ability to go out and do something about it. That's all that you're entitled to. Not anything else. Not more than that. It's just you are able to go out and better your life if you choose to. Able-bodied, exactly. You don't have a disability, you can go do it. Nobody else to depend on, like, oh, you should give me this, you should give me that. No.
Well, exactly. So you always have the opportunity, and the benefit that you have as an American is that you have a lot to your resources available to you. As immigrants, we didn't have any kind of government help, government assistance, nothing. We weren't entitled to any of that stuff, right? Because we're not Americans. That's only for Americans. So my thing is, like, we go back to the same thing. What did you do to earn that? Just being born here? It creates an entitlement issue.
Oh, for sure.
So it creates it, and that's the entitlement that I think I have an issue with. Every time I read articles like this, every time I see stuff like that, that my issue comes in because I look at how much my parents worked and busted their ass to provide a living for us, how much they sacrificed. You understand? Like, I saw all those things, but I didn't see them as, oh, poor dad, poor mom. I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as like, all right, that's what you got to do. You got to earn your way. You know what I mean? So what did I do in high school? Many people don't know this, but like in high school, I was offered a full scholarship to go to a technical university in Florida for mechanics, auto mechanics.
You would have loved Florida.
Yeah, I imagine. All that humidity and heat. Well, at the time, I was a high school kid, so I was just thinking girls in bikinis. That's all I thought about. College, girls in bikinis. I was like, ooh, I'm ready for college. But because we were immigrants, I couldn't take that scholarship. I wasn't allowed to take the scholarship, right? I didn't cry about it. I was like, all right, that's that. Dropped out of school because I was like, I'm not American, so I can't earn my way there, so I went to work. And I created my business and started working and build our business. And then eventually I was able to get my papers. I earned my right to be called an American. And I just look at everything and I look at everybody just whining and complaining. And we have, friends of ours that are always complaining about this past election. Oh, it was stolen. It was this. It was that. I'm not saying it is or was it. My thing is stop the bitching. What is it with all this complaining and whining and moaning? And it's like, do something about it. Let's say the Democrats did steal the election. Okay, steal it back. What did they do?
They played the game better
exactly.
than you did.
They beat you. Stop whining.
Stealing and cheating is a game strategy. I mean, just look at your New England Patriots.
Let's go Patriots.
I had to throw that in there. It's like, they cheated, but hey, they still won games. I was like, they still got the titles.
Yeah.
So it is.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I get emotional about those things because of that. Like, I saw the struggle that my parents went through. I went through the struggle myself where, like, I was denied a lot of shit. I lived in fear most of my life up until my, mid-20s when I finally was able to become a legal resident of the country. So, up until then, I was driving illegally. I was working illegal. Well, not working because I was self-employed. That is illegal. That is legal. And as a self-employed, they do require you to pay taxes even though you don't get anything back. So where I'm going at with this is that immigrants give a lot to this country. You understand? To earn their place here. Americans simply exist. And it's enough. And I think that's what needs to change. You understand? I think that's the shit that needs to change, because the love I have for this country, I mean, I think I can beat almost any American with how much love I have for this country. And I've lived in other countries. I've actually had to leave and go live in other countries. I love this country with all of my heart. I would do anything for this country. You understand? But it's because I worked and I sacrificed to be here and to have what I have. And I don't see people willing to do that. People are just like, you should take care of me. And that's fine. There's no pride. There's no pride even in like, is that the country that you want to live in? I mean, is that really the country that you want to be, that you want to call home? A country that's just like, yeah, it's like saying, you know, yeah, my daddy takes care of me. We all know this. How many times do you use that same example? Like, oh, you know, it's because he or she is spoiled, right? Their parents spoil them. Oh, daddy takes care of everything. Many people are always making fun of those people. Yet that's exactly what you want to do. That's exactly who you want to become. Your daddy is the government now. And you're saying, Daddy, take care of my credit card bills. When does ownership kick in? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of worked up. So I'm sorry if I'm hurting anybody's feelings. Again, my whole thing with this is, like I said,
it's passionate in all caps.
Yes. I love the country so much. And when I hear people complain and disrespect this country, it upsets me, because it's like, no, this country is still an amazing country. Do we have flaws? Yes, we have flaws. Don't turn off the mic.
I know. I'm making sure I don't turn it off. That's what I was saying. I'm making sure it's not.
But when I hear people complain and bitch about the country, it just really upsets me, because it's like, you don't know how good you have it. You know, and again, I'm not saying that we don't have flaws and there isn't room for improvement. There always is. There's always going to be room for improvement, you know, but it's not a place for you to just make it so drastic of a decision where it's like, there's room for improvement. Oh, the whole country sucks because of this one little issue or this one sector. You know what I mean? It's like, no, that is a problem. Let's come together and solve it. But the country doesn't suck because of it. You know what I mean? So sorry for that rant. But it's just something like, again, really gets my blood boiling when I hear stuff like that.
Well, let's find some more blood boiling topics to get you in as far as funny money getting pumped into the market.
What are you thinking?
Well, but do your one on Elon Musk, because I got a follow up to it.
Which one?
The Neuralink.
Okay. Oh, so this one's actually a fun article. I enjoyed it because, you know, I love technology. I love all the advancements in technology. I love, you know, gadgets, everything that has to do with that. So Elon Musk says Neuralink could start implanting chips in human brains later this year. So Neuralink is actually a company that he owns. And I mean, my God, how many businesses does this guy have? Freaking nuts. And no wonder he has the success that he has. Like,
married to his career kind of type.
Oh, 1,000%.
He has like 6 kids too. But he's like, I'm married to my career. Like,
yeah, those kids are somebody else is taking care of them.
Yeah, oh yeah, no.
But so he says that by later this year they're in talks with FDA, I would guess. So with the FDA on starting human trials. And somebody tweeted him. They said, I was in a car accident 20 years ago and I have been paralyzed from the shoulders ever since. From the shoulders ever since. I'm always available for clinical studies at Neuralink. So this person, you know, this kid is just eager. It's like, I can't do anything. I'm down to be a guinea pig for you. So Elon Musk has been doing a lot of interviews. I really recommend you guys go check him out if you're interested in this. Just he is kind of dry, but the stuff that he says these Neuralinks can do, I find to be insanely impressive. So it says Neuralink goal is also to help paralyzed patient easily interact with their cell phones or computers by implanting the chip in their brain. And Musk recently went on an audio stream Clubhouse. So he was on Clubhouse for like an hour and a half or something. and people went nuts. The fact that, because Clubhouse, if you don't know, I did a video on this. Go check it out. It's in our channel. I'll put the link below. But I did a video on how to use Clubhouse for real estate investors. And this app is just, it's blowing up. It is for iPhone users. So if you don't have an iPhone, buy. But anyway, it is for iPhone users right now. And he went on and he was talking about all the benefits of doing it. And he says that they already have a chip in the brain of a monkey, and the monkey can play video games using that chip. So
it's crazy.
He's like, it's so cool. He's like, well, he says, what would be cool if we can get two monkeys to play brain pong together. So that, that little game with the ball.
Yeah, where so like everything starts like, check out this game. It goes up and down.
Yeah, so they want two monkeys to play against each other. He's like, that would be cool. He's such a nerd. But you can solve everything from memory loss to hearing loss to blindness. He was talking about anxiety, insomnia, depression, like pretty much all the health, stress, all the issues that cause a lot of health issues. He's saying that with this Neuralink, it can help you. You understand? It can help you control all of those things. So my question to you and everybody listening, would you do it? Would you get a chip installed in your brain?
I don't think I'd be one of the first people. But I think it would be cool, the fact that it's like there's so many times of like you're having like on a mouse, the computer a lot, like how connected to computers we are nowadays, where your brain can usually move faster than what your body can react and things like that. So think about moving on a computer. If you're trying to do a certain task, how many times you have to move around, move a mouse with your hand, to where if you can think it and it instantly goes over, that speed that things could get done, the efficiency of things, like that gets me excited. Like how many times I'm like, I got to go open this spreadsheet. I got to go find this thing. I got to open that, wait for the computer to load up, to where if you can connect like the brain to things like that is exciting, especially when it comes to stuff like paraplegics and they're in a car accident. I can't move my legs, but if you're able to hook up to a machine that like I think it and the machine does it for me, since the body can't anymore, I think that has huge potential, and especially for quality of life. So yeah, I think it's cool. I don't know if I'd be the first person to do it, but it is one of those things that I do see it's going that route. Like more and more and more of like the exponential technologies of this world, and like how things are getting more and more connected. It's going that route. Now, we had this conversation the other day, like if they wound up like basically putting hard drives in your brain where you could back up to them all the time, like if that happened in the next 15, 20 years, and so we'd be in our 50s. So another 20 years goes by, we're in our 70s, like where's that going to leave us technologically when you have an entire generation coming up that literally remembers everything? And we can't remember the original 50 years of our life because we have to rely on like our old memories and stuff like that. Or
well,
like,
and then also
the learning capacity would just be like, I can't compete with that anymore.
We can go down a massive rabbit hole with all this because...
No, we don't need you to go down any more rabbit holes.
Oh, but
your temperature needs to come down a little bit.
Yeah, we had Dre say it's too early for blood boiling temperatures. But Valeria says, nope. People can hack pacemakers, imagine brain chips. So, that it's a good point. But one of the things that I think about is, look how much having a phone has affected us, right? We talked about it the other day I remember when I was younger, and but in my teens, middle school, high school, I knew all of the girls' phone numbers. I knew all of my family members' phone numbers. I can dial anybody's phone number at any given time. Now, I know my wife's and half of like your phone number. And then I got to start doing a variation with the other half.
I know it's 210. That's I got that part.
Yeah.
I know it's a San Antonio number.
It's a San Antonio number, but so you look at it and it's because of the phones. It's made us to where it's like, well, we don't have to remember all that math. I don't have to remember a lot of the formulas because I could just plug it into my phone. I just love that
analogy, like your high school or middle school 7th grade teacher. You're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket. Like, sucker, I do.
Not just that. It was like you have it in your wrist now. I mean, I can pull up my calculator on my watch.
Well, that's one thing, but it also goes.
Those are cool. I remember the calculator watches. Those were awesome.
Yeah, and there's a watch that you could like lift up and then like secretly have a calculator in your watch. Those are. But it frees up your mind to remember other things, or you're not focusing on trying to remember cell phone numbers or telephone numbers constantly, or now you can have other things that you can focus on.
So you don't think that it would make our brains, I guess, I don't know if the right word would be lazier, but it would make our brains maybe other areas of it, because now we become so dependent on this chip, right, where the rest of the brain is not being worked? Or is the chip also going to improve the rest of the brain because it can make it work more efficiently? So is it that we're going to be using the chip, or is the chip going to be amplifying our brain already?
I think it'll be amplifying, because you look at the human race over the however long it's been around, it's like it's always gone for progression. Like just naturally, that is what the human species does, is it tries to survive, grow and survive, reproduce and grow over time and get more advanced and more technologically or emotionally, whatever it is, to be more prosperous and advanced. So I think it would enhance the ability to do that. Because I mean, you look at the things that you can get done in the 2000 versus 2020. It's like we're by far more efficient, or by far can do more tasks because we're not remembering certain things. So I think this would be something that would help amplify that aspect of it. Now, to Valeri's point of like the hacking aspect of it, if they can hack pacemakers, can they hack your brain? Now that aspect of it is very concerning as well, because going into the article that I wanted to talk about.
But hold on, before you jump in, it's also who created pacemakers. Keep in mind that this Neuralink is created by one of the biggest nerds of our lifetime, right? Elon Musk. Like, I'm pretty sure Elon's got much better technology and everything than the people that created a freaking pacemaker. And pacemakers weren't created when shit. I think, in my opinion, I haven't looked at like the foundation of pacemakers, but I don't think they were created with the concept of it being hacked because of how crazy technology is getting. Where Elon Musk, I think, lives 50 years ahead already. So
I think, but he even come out saying that human race is inherently flawed. So he doesn't like the human race, and now he's going to put things in our brain to control us. So, and there
you go. That's how you improve the human race.
And he's even said
you must comply.
He's scared shitless of AI. So it's like, like how do you defend against that? I mean, it's a perplexing situation. But now, keeping on the form of Elon Musk, is that under pressure, following pressure from the U.S. regulator, Tesla is recalling just shy of 135,000 Model S and Model X vehicles due to a common touchscreen failure that can lead to the loss of several safety-related features while driving. Owners of the affected cars said their media control units, which would sometimes go blank in part or entirely, the touchscreen issue interfered with drivers' ability to use heat, air conditioning, defrost, defogging system, and use the rear view cameras and Tesla Autopilot featured while parking and driving, and left some feeling too frightened to use their vehicles at all. That's something that blew my mind, because also it was basically for Teslas that were made in the Fremont plant in California between 2012 and 2018, and the Model X SUVs from 2016 to 2018. So this is what also got me about this. Tesla's been in the market a lot. It was one of the biggest winners of 2020 stock market, one of those huge rally. And even Musk has come out and saying, hey, we need to change our business model, do some different things. There's another article about Apple cars that needs to be done in order to justify their stock price. He's even coming out and saying like, yeah, we need to figure out some new stuff to even justify this price, because it doesn't make sense. But for the last year, they delivered 50 cars short of 500,000 vehicles. That was their biggest production of the year, in a year, of 500,000 cars that they put out in 1 year. Now they're recalling 135,000 of cars from 2012 to 2018. To me, it's just like, that is a huge portion of a recall that you're doing when your production line, where you might only put out 300 cars that entire year, and you're recalling 135,000 of those things.
Yeah.
And what happens? Their stock price goes up 3%. I think, not 3, it wouldn't go up 3%. It only dropped 3% from where it's at. Like, they missed a target, and they're recalling all of these cars out. I mean, that's a huge safety issue. That's like, you can't use rear view cameras.
Number of cars.
You can't use your autopilot features. You can't use defrosters, defoggers, and some of the like the signals weren't working on the outside of the car.
Yep.
For like how fragile these cars are becoming, to where like you got an old Chevy when those things first came out, water pump goes out, okay, your car just poof and just goes to the side of the road. But those cars weren't able to go from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And aren't capable of going 180 miles an hour. Where like these safety features go, boom, they're gone just like that. To where like these components where they're so interconnected and they're so dependent on each other that one thing goes wrong, and they brought it down to, I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was some kind of chip that was made in some part, and they traced it down to that vehicle. But it's like that one little chip caused that many safety features to go out, to where you got a lot of these cars. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do believe that autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles are here and they're not going away, and they are going to replace the internal combustion engine. But I think there's a lot of progress that needs to be made, to where the U.S. regulators are one that was pressuring Tesla to do that.
Yeah.
But Tesla's like, oh, no, there's no problem. There's no problem. I mean, it's parts just wear out. Like, I mean, you bought a car in 2018 and 3 years later, the car's already worn out. Like,
what is it, an iPhone that you need to replace it every 2 years?
And that's where like they come to some of this stuff. They're like all the green movement, but like the batteries in these cars. Like you look at cars from like the 60s, 70s, 50s, 40s, like those things are still out there running. You can still go, but like you get an electric vehicle that was made in like 2020, like what is that going to do to these things in 10, 15 years?
They're like little toy cars.
Are they going to be useless because of like technology, your cell phone, every 2 years, 3 years, you're going to start having problems with your phone. To where like the software updates make it kind of start getting glitchy.
The software updates that you'd probably need to keep that car, running well, it's probably like, yeah, your car is too old to take the new software update, so you need to upgrade your car.
Yeah, and then it's like to get a new car, you're talking another $60,000, $70,000, $80,000.
Well, I think where that's going is where you and I have always talked about is, cars become like your cell phone, like your I don't know, any other subscription model that you have. You shouldn't be buying a car. You should be leasing, because every 2 to 3 years, hand it in, get a new one. 2 years, 3 years, hand it in, get a new one.
But now it comes down to, what do you do with the old cars? Like the recycling aspect. I mean, everyone's like, green, you need to redo these things, but like these batteries are highly toxic. You can't just like recycle a lot of those parts and things. And now this entire car, to where they
do what they've been doing. You throw it into space.
Yeah, we just have a giant tube that they just throw it in and just...
That'll get it.
Leave it. Anything's ever gonna make aliens come here. Like, where's all this trash just floating around coming from?
Oh, is this Saturn? Oh no, that's just the garbage. Oh.
Yeah, we're just gonna launch it.
It's a dirty planet. Well, it's already. I was trying to look for it a while back, but they already showed like how much debris and garbage there is on our atmosphere, outer atmosphere, because of like just old satellites that are no longer operational, debris from when they're building shit up there. They just go.
Well, it's half the shooting stars that you see is just like junk falling back into orbit and burning up in the atmosphere.
So are you saying when we were on our retreat and we had that very romantic moment that we saw like 16 shooting stars that night, you're telling me that wasn't real?
No, I did read an article that there was some kind of little asteroid belt thing coming through. So
because to me that was a special moment.
It was space dust falling back.
There we go. Oh man, but it is very interesting. Seeing how these companies are operating, seeing the fact that it's like, you can make bad bets, you can do crazy shit, and yet you're okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think right now, I wonder with Elon Musk, is it that he's too cool right now that people are going to keep investing in Tesla just because they love Elon Musk? Because that's what I think. I think Tesla, the reason it is what it is and it's at where it is because they love Elon. Like people when he said that he was going to be on Clubhouse, I want to actually go back and do the research as to how many more downloads happen in Clubhouse just because Elon was going to be on there.
The power he has with a cell phone and his Twitter account of like this
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. And he just did something for like Dogcoin or Dogecoin or something like that, and just sent that coin, a digital currency, through the freaking roof because he mentioned it, said, I like the technology. And then it just boom, blew up. It was like, oh my God. I mean, and that just goes back to this massive euphoria that's in the market with this money. Because I mean, what happened to GameStop? What happened? They tried to do to silver. What they did to AMC.
Yeah.
To where these companies, like, there's so much funny money, and then it goes back to the government. Let's pump more money into the system. And it's like, what are you doing? Another $1.9 trillion where, like, you're causing massive problems. Like, oh, the economy's starving. And, like, I get it. Yes, there are parts of the economy that do really need actual help.
Yeah.
But just dumping money everywhere across all facets, like, obviously you're causing other massive problems in other areas of technology where, like, a bunch of people on Reddit can cause that much problem in the stock market. It's like, you're not talking just like, I don't know, 100 people with an extra couple hundred extra dollars. You're talking millions of people with hundreds and thousands of dollars. I mean, hundreds to thousands of dollars that are able to plow into this thing and create problems.
And then also because of social media, they're able to
do it instantly,
come together
yeah,
and do it at a scale that damn near, makes hedge funds lose $70 billion in like a course of a few weeks.
Also, what gets me about that, everyone's like, yeah, stick it to the hedge funds. Like, do you realize whose money they just lost?
Yeah. It's not the hedge funds' money.
No, it's like they lost $70 billion of your teachers' pensions, of your government pensions, of your insurance companies that insure your house. It's like, that's whose money they lost. It's like everyone says, I'll stick it to Wall Street. But it's like, no. That's not a good thing to be cheering about. Yes, it's like, hey, there was, to some extent, it's like, yes, they shouldn't be making those bets. You should be taught a lesson, but not to where it's like, hey, no, you just lost pension money.
Well, but that's also the risk
endowments.
Like when they make those bets, they are taking a risk. Yes, they're protected because they are the hedge funds and they're also too big to fail, which is why like you had the SEC and all these people start stepping in and stop trading to help them kind of like catch up on some of their shorts and everything, so the losses wouldn't be as great.
Yeah.
And they probably know that at the end of the day, they're going to get bailed out if they needed to, because, again, moral hazard is no longer an issue. But it's just getting to a point where it's kind of it's interesting. It's interesting to see where the market is heading nowadays. Like, I think if you have the fortitude to speculate, all you have to do is kind of follow Elon Musk. Like, as soon as he tweets something, good or bad, depending on what it is, you go buy it. You buy either call options or you buy some put options.
Chip in your brain would become instant. So if you could see Elon tweet, open your brokerage account instantly and short a stock in a matter of fractions of a second.
What I'm curious,
I get ahead of everybody.
So what I'm curious about with that is the way my mind works. I'm like, either I'm going to drive everything crazy in my office, or what the hell is it going to have? Is it going to help like organize my brain a little bit?
No.
I wonder what that chip is going to do with somebody that's so scatterbrained.
It's going to make you more scatterbrained.
Can you imagine?
Across more areas.
It's like, oh yeah, you can control this with your mind. Boom, everything just short circuits. I'm like, whoops. Interesting. But kind of going into, I was going to go into a different article and I'll go to it right after about Open Door. But I wanted to cover this one on the Democrats are moving to propose a new $1,400 stimulus check plan that cuts the number of people eligible for the relief. So what we've been talking about for quite some time is actually them making these stimulus, right? It's not stimulating anything.
All you're doing is returning my stolen tax dollars. That's what I call it. This is my tax dollars back.
Ooh, sorry, YouTube. He's joking.
Kind of.
But so it seems like it's being more targeted, which is what I find really funny with all this of what you and I talk about politics and how everything is so just damn political. Like, it's not really what does the country need. It's more about, what's going to keep us in office, what's going to get us elected. That before it was the Republicans pushing for smaller stimulus, more targeted stimulus, all of this. And the Democrats, bigger. We need to go bigger. Everybody needs a check. Everybody needs everything, right? Now that the Democrats are in power, we need to go smaller. We need to get smaller. They want even smaller stimulus. They want smaller everything. And the Republicans are saying the opposite. They're like, we need bigger checks. Everybody needs a check. We need to increase the eligibility for these relief packages. I'm like, my God, you guys flip-flop more than... Well, I'm not going to finish that one because that one I know will offend people. But you flip-flop a lot. So with that being said, they say the newest version of the plan will provide $1,400 payments to individuals earning $50,000 or below. Married couples making $100,000 or under would receive the full payment. In addition, heads of households making $120,000 and under will get the entire cash payment as well. Biden's rescue plan would provide the full $1,400 payment to individuals
You just kind of
earning 75 or below in couples. Yeah, this is the same article. That's
I was like, you just said they're changing it, but now that's probably what his original plan was.
That's
the original plan was that because that mimics what the plan was before, what qualified you for the first two checks.
Yeah.
So now this $1,400 one's like, hey, we're going to go ahead and make this smaller. So I think that's what that aspect was. That was Biden's original package. And in a effort to compromise, to make it bipartisan, they're lowering the threshold on the package, which to me, that just blows my mind. It's like, okay, so we're going to lower payments to individuals, but we're still going to keep the payments to poorly run states and governments super high. We're going to pay money to failing businesses just to keep these zombie companies alive. It's like, but we're going to lower payments to the actual individuals. I mean, it's like, you're cutting this from the completely wrong place. It's like, that's, to me, is just retarded.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm reading the article again, and it's still saying the same exact thing. Like, it's saying it at the top as one thing, and then here in the middle of the article, it says this, what I just read. Way to do
your homework, John.
Well, hey.
Headline reader.
Yeah, headline reader. No, I'm a article skimmer. But what I find interesting is so they're talking about all this, that now they're wanting to cut it, and they're wanting to make it more targeted to who receives it, which, okay, makes sense. But the argument that the Republicans were having is that these income thresholds, they're like, there's places of the country where people are making more than that $50,000, but that's not good in those areas.
I can imagine in New York, San Francisco, Atlanta, like any of these places that like there's big metropolitans with lots of money, like especially the coast. Let's call it that. Like, yeah, 50 grand doesn't really get you anywhere out there. I mean, you're just barely making it by at $50,000. But here in like San Antonio, like, 50 grand, you're doing right. You can go out to restaurants, you can take vacations, you can go do things on 50 grand a year here. But yeah, if you live in Southern California, Silicon Valley, New York, Connecticut, DC.
Well, I mean, when I was in New York and Val and I were both working, we had a 1-bedroom apartment, and this is not in the city. We're like an hour and a half outside of the city in the suburb area, and we were making, I want to say, like 65 grand maybe a year together. It wasn't killer money. But we were barely paycheck to paycheck. I mean, we had credit card debt, we had everything, and this was 8-9 years ago. So, you know what I mean? Like, and now it's gotten worse because even though they want to say there's no inflation, go grocery shopping. I'm sure you're spending more. Your gas, you're spending more. So things have gotten more expensive. So it's like, yeah, I think you do need to adjust for that. But then at the same time, it's like, you got to kind of think about it. When you're doing these stimulus packages and stuff like that, it's like, you got to create a program where it's like, if you don't need the money, then you have to be able to give it back somehow, through taxes, when you do your taxes at the end of the year or something like that, where you're not just like giving all this free money around. And obviously that is their goal. To stimulate the economy is like flood the people that don't need the money, because then they'll go out and buy shit.
Oh, yeah, because that's worked so well in the past.
Exactly. But what we see is we don't see that. We see people doing dumb shit with their money.
I saw another article where it said of the original the first $1,200 check, the people that made above like $50,000 or $40,000 only spent like $110 in the economy of that amount. It's like the majority of it just went into savings for most people.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is the fear, right? Most people have this fear of what the hell is going to happen. We lost our jobs, all this. I mean, we have friends in the airline space that they became even bigger savers. I mean, they were already very fiscally sound, but they became even bigger savers because now they don't know. Even though the airlines are like, hey, everybody's gonna get back to work. Then we hear recently that like, okay, we might furlough a couple more thousand people.
Well, it's
And
pandering so they can push this to get this next round of stimulus again. Because I'm sure the government has money in there for the airline industry to keep them floated again for another. I mean, you're taking that up to a year now. Like, I think it was supposed to end in March, which takes you to a year. And then now they're going to get another bailout and more money to go even further. It's just like, oh my God. I'm curious if they're going to do more of the student loan aspect that they've all been talking about doing with this package. Because I read an article on it that was up by the 4th, which was yesterday, that they put out about it, but it really didn't allude to much. But they're still pushing in there to get an extra $10,000 to $50,000, and it's not no second grade freshman congressman either. It's Chuck Schumer, it's Elizabeth Warren. These people are Bernie Sanders, people that are heads of committees in the Democratic Party. So is that going to be put in here too? Who knows? Because that's one thing. Like, they passed the resolution, or passed it, was it yesterday or the day before in the House? The budget to send it to the Senate, but they didn't make it public yet. So all of this stuff is just kind of still speculation of what's really in it. They kind of got some highlights of what it looked like when it went in, but nothing has really come out of what the full bill is. They haven't made it public yet.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so you're passing things, but yet the public doesn't know what you're passing. It's like, that's great for government, people we elect to actually run this place, to run it, do major.
It's not secrecy,
stimulus
John.
bills.
It's called politics. That's what always happens. I mean, that's why the biggest laws and everything gets passed during like holidays and weekends and shit, so people can't anticipate. They can't do anything about it.
Well, here's something that
or pay attention to it.
Bring this to real estate a little bit. Of Biden's stimulus could worsen affordable housing crisis, and it's something we've talked about in this past about aspects, and this is done by Housing Wire, that
Housing Wire
creating all this more like, oh, we're going to give all these incentives to be home buyers. It's like, that is not the problem or the solution. We're already at record low inventory levels, record level of rising rents and prices. Adding more incentives to be buyers, like the free market will adjust to that so fast that you're going to get a small little bump to things of home ownership, but that's it.
Well, so, they will adjust, or they're already anticipating it. I mean, because we talked about it plenty of times on Coffee with the Johns previous episodes, that we know that's what's going to be coming down the line. So you already have a lot of the builders, investors, and then you also have a lot of the speculators in the stock market and everything already anticipating that the housing market is like, they're going to keep stimulating it as much as they can.
So this article goes on to say that the nation's most influential housing trade group sent a letter to the House Committee on Financial Services saying any new stimulus package considered will need to have rental assistance, and warned of dire consequences if it does not. And we're not talking small groups here. So, I mean, some big household names like the housing group includes CCIM Institute, Council of Affordable and Rural Housing, Institute of Real Estate Management, Manufacturer Housing Institute, Mortgage Brokers Association, National Affordable Housing Management Association, National Apartment Association, National Realtors. I mean, list goes on and on. Basically, every expert of every organization in real estate is sending a letter to Congress being like, hey, you really need to figure this out. So, or rethink your approach here and the consequences that could come from it.
Right.
In the letter, the trade group urged Congress to move beyond the one-size-fits-all federal housing policy in favor of a more tailored approach. President Joe Biden's America Rescue Plan stimulus proposes a continuation of previously placed policies for the rental sector, such as an extension of federal eviction and moratoriums, meaning that they're not going to give any money to help these landlords. They're just going to say, hey, figure it out yourself, because you can't evict anybody. For now, we're going on a better part of a year, and they're going to extend this even further till, talking September. You're talking 18 months that you can't evict and you can't get income coming in yourself. And then they're not going to give enough money to those people to replace them. Like, so what is that really going to do? So so the organization proposed instead a rental assistance plan to be considered. We strongly support the inclusion of additional rental assistance in the American Rescue Plan. The letter states, without additional robust direct rental assistance beyond the newly proposed $25 billion, housing providers may never fully recover outstanding debt, whether through the eviction process or otherwise. And the housing affordability crisis will be exacerbated in the long and short term. This could devastate the industry and hurt America's most vulnerable renters. The apartment industry faces an estimated $60 billion in lost rents for 2020, according to the study. So my thoughts on that is like, yes, you're going to give 25 billion. It's like there is way more needed than that in that aspect of it, where they're trying to help like the individuals, like, oh, you can't evict people. We're going to give them $1,400 checks and stuff like that. It's like at some point, these people can't hold on to these mortgages. They can't hold on to these houses because there is leverage involved. So what happens to these houses? They defer the maintenance. They don't respond to tenants. They don't evict them. Like when you strap them for cash, the house itself, the asset itself, goes into disrepair. Well, then the government steps in, like you were talking a while back about New York, saying like, oh, now we're going to tax you that you need to maintain that business, or we're going to fine you for it, and putting it all on the landlord. But they're cutting off their income streams, putting more regulations on the housing and what you're allowed to do with that house. And at some point, it's like, I do agree that it's going to hurt the industry drastically if you don't get this figured out. And one, just like, open the damn economy back up. Let people go back to work. Stop giving them free money to stay home and giving them all kinds of extra assurances, and then not allowing their landlords to remove them to replace their income. Because otherwise you are going to create a plethora of dilapidated houses that are going to go back to banks. And then now you're back into a huge housing crisis again that you had just 12 years ago.
Or what we had in New York when I started investing in real estate, or trying to get into it, is a bunch of ghost inventory, right? And ghost inventory, for those of you that may not know, is pretty much the bank took back so many properties that they don't want to drop them on the market because it would tank the real estate market.
Sink their other performing things.
Exactly. So they just hold on to these vacant homes that are just empty. I remember I had gotten in to see a few of them. They were flooded so bad because in New York we have basements, and a lot of houses had hardwood floors. So the basements were flooded with 2 feet of water, and then pretty much the first floor, the next level up, the wooden floor was bowed like 2 inches high of how much humidity was in the house, just destroying the wood floors, the mold downstairs, everything.
Well, you have what you had here in San Antonio when you get to East and West Side going through the last decade. I mean, you had houses that were just worthless, and you could tell like that house we purchased where like it was literally sitting on the ground, and it probably should have torn down. But
kind of did almost. Just left one wall.
Yeah, rebuilt 90% of it. But that's like, you're not talking a few years of neglect there. You're talking years and years and decades of neglect to that property to get into that bad of a situation. That's what's going to happen if you take this inventory or you penalize those people. So tying right into that is why mortgage lending standards will ease in 2021. So economists and housing experts say mortgage lending standards will likely loosen in 2021 despite the increased risk of delinquencies ahead. As the economy reopens and the COVID-19 vaccine beats back the threat of the virus, economists expect the loosening of credit will only increase consumer demand for loans, including mortgages. Over the pandemic, a record number of U.S. households reduced their debt loads, giving them better shot at new mortgages. Such a scenario illustrates the growing disparities in the U.S. housing market as one struggling group of homeowners braces for the end of forbearance and navigates the COVID-19-related economic shock. Another segment is better positioned than ever to scoop up properties that became available. Nevertheless, the fact that high-income households have fared so much better than low-income ones over the past years means that there may still be a lack of access to credit for low-income households, even if underwriting standards ease somewhat this year. My thought on that is, with the Democrats in power and then pushing for the lower to middle families, are they going to start penalize real estate investors to try and force more inventory onto the market? So like we talked about the taxes that they're doing with the capital gains, doubling those taxes and stuff like that, where it doesn't incentivize you so much to buy a house, hold on to it for 10 years and sell it with massive, huge appreciation, because 40 cents of every dollar you gain now gets paid in taxes, to where like, hey, I'm going to go invest that somewhere else to get that income to produce more. So that's where I tie that into the last article, is you have renters out, people that are professional real estate investors and hold all their real estate there, to where they're not getting the money and they're having to liquidate properties. When you have this new group of high income people coming in and able to pay those prices because they have access to the credit, because you have this last year where, hey, if you made 75 and above and were in a professional setting outside of some of these few industries, you were doing pretty well, if not better, especially if you're involved in some form of technology, where they have the money, they have the the access to credit to now the step in to where when you put this inventory in the market, it should bring prices down. But now you have all these people jumping in saying, hey, I made a bunch of money and I know this euphoria around real estate makes you money over time. I'm going to jump in and buy all that inventory, keeping prices inflated. Where if the Democrats pass something that says like, hey, penalizing real estate investors like they're doing in California, where if it's foreclosed, I think, what was it, 6 months that before an investor can buy that house, that it has to go to homeowners, try to go to homeowners first? Are they going to create some kind of program and create more red tape in the industry we work in?
Supposedly the city was going to jump in and buy a lot of them for them to have the inventory to help provide this inventory to people that normally wouldn't get a house and stuff like that. So it's like, so you're trying to provide this to people that, it's not that they can't get a house, it's that they can't afford a house.
Yeah.
So you're going to buy it and artificially make it so they can own a home. What is that going to look like, right? Are you going to, by doing that, are you going to affect the housing prices, right, by decreasing the cost of the house? Or are you going to make these people pretty much buy homes that's going to put them in a position that's going to be like, look, you know, good luck, here's a house. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what does that actually look like?
That's what caused the financial crisis in the last place. It wasn't the banks speculating. It's the government and the regulations that they put on, where I think it was coming out of the Clinton into the Bush administration, where like everybody needs to get a house. Everyone should afford a house. FHA, lower the limits, lower the regulations, allow these ninja loans and stuff like that. So it wasn't the banks. The banks were going off an incentive from the government.
Well, it's never the direction of the government. The banks, like any corporation, like everything, they're there for the bottom line, is to increase their profits. It's the incentives that the government gives what dictates what companies and banks and everybody does. If there's no incentive, they're not going to do it, because if they're not going to make money, they're not going to do it. Yeah. Right. So it's, you know, we follow the incentives. But this next article that I wanted to talk about was mortgage refinancing suddenly surges, but home buyers stall due to sticker shock. So we're having an insane amount of refis coming through the market. Man, look at all that snow. Fucking Northeast got hit hard with snow, man.
God bless it. Thank God I live in Texas.
Yeah. I was like, my father-in-law sent some pictures and videos and stuff. I was like, ooh, that looks so pretty from over here.
Yeah, it was like 79 degrees yesterday, sunny, nice weather, perfect day outside. Like, oh, man,
great breeze. But anyway, sidetracked a little bit. So in this article, we're talking about applications to refinance jumped 11% last week from the previous week. Demand was up 59% higher than a year ago. The move was spurred by a decline in interest rates. So you have the average contract interest rate, 30-year loan is down for, let's see, conforming loan balances of $548,000 or less, decreased to 2.92%.
Free money.
That's some low-ass interest rates. Buyers are less impressed by the drop in the rates and likely more frustrated by the overheated home prices and record low supply of homes. So mortgage applications to purchase a home were essentially flat for the week, rising just 0.1%. So mortgage applications for new home purchases up 0.1%, so almost nothing. Purchase demand was 16% higher than a year ago, but annual comparison has been shrinking during the past month. So my thoughts, really high refis plus very low inventory equals rentals. Like, you should be having rentals because right now with that kind of market, you know, that we have right now, that everybody is more prone to refinancing, which means even lower inventories. Because if you're refinancing now, I doubt you're going to be selling in the next couple of years. You're refinancing, you're probably thinking, all right, look, let's refi. Let's get these low interest rates, maybe pull some money out. Let's update the kitchen. Let's maybe do an addition. Like right now, if I would actually be looking at creating a construction company. Obviously, knowing construction, please. Stop creating a construction company because one day you painted a house. You know, but
Everybody starts though.
Yeah. I watch a lot of HGTV. But if you had a construction company right now, I think the people that are going to be needing remodels, additions, updates, you know, getting creative with how they make the best use of their home and all that is going to go through the roof, because nobody's going to be looking to sell, because they're looking at their home and it's like, well, I have this house where the mortgage is amazing, the interest rates are low, I can afford this. But if I sell this house, yeah, I could probably sell it for a good amount of money, but I'm getting less or the same or less of a house if I move somewhere else.
Yeah.
With a higher mortgage, right? Because now you're probably paying more to get a nicer house. And this one, at least you know what quirks or whatever it has. So it's stopping people from selling, which is going to keep causing more pressure on the inventory. And you put out the market update Sunday. So if you haven't checked it out, again, the links are going to be below, and or just go on our channel. But the market update, I mean, over 6 zip codes. It was over 6, but the hottest 6 zip
Lowest
codes
months of inventory
under 1 month of inventory.
And these aren't small zip codes either.
No.
It's basically like the entire northeast, northwest, north side of the city. Like several of those zip codes, like very well developed, heavily developed areas.
And
like
the medium price home
huge.
On those zip codes was what?
Over 200.
Exactly, over 200 grand. So these are not like your lower end zip codes, right? And they're insane how hot and how fast these homes are selling. And we're seeing it left and right. People are outbidding on the retail market. You know, this is why we talked about before, and we're dropping a new episode this Wednesday on why you should stop wholesaling houses and why you should start hoteling houses. Even if you're flipping houses, stop. Like, run your numbers. There are chances that you can make the same or maybe a little bit less profit by doing a hotel, and with a lot less risk, right? Because now you don't have to take the risk of renovating the house, because there's such low inventory, especially if you're in these hot areas and you're targeting the zip codes the way that we target them. You're gonna just need to put a house that's livable on the market, and it's gonna sell, and you're gonna make some great money on it. So we're having a lot of pressure from this market, from the buyers, from all of this. And, you know, it's putting a lot more pressure on this, on the market. What do you have any thoughts on that? I have another article here.
I mean, no, I don't want to kind of
beat a dead horse.
I wasn't going to use that analogy, but yeah. I don't need to keep going on the same thing.
Is that animal cruelty? We're not actually beating a dead horse, people.
No idea.
All right,
but yeah, we keep going around the same thing. So
we have the CFPB doubles down on mortgage servicing enforcements. Promise bold and swift action to send a message. So you have the new acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Dave Wehio, told staff in an email on Thursday that the Bureau will direct its attention to mortgage servicers, promising aggressive action to ensure companies follow the law. And they're really cracking down on this. And one thing we can do immediately is to focus our supervision and enforcement tools on overseeing the companies responsible for COVID relief. I'm concerned about the findings described in last week's supervisory highlights edition that companies are failing to properly administer relief through the crisis. So the biggest issue that all of this is having is they're saying that because of COVID and everything that's been happening, there are a lot of servicers that are not doing the job of reaching out to the to the borrowers, letting them know what their options are. So even though, like, they say that forbearance rates have fallen, they're like, that's because actually a lot of people don't understand what forbearance is. They don't understand what their options are. So they actually have put out more language saying that if you do go into forbearance, there is a plan in place to help you after the forbearance period. There's going to be talks about what they call loss mitigation. So loss mitigation is a fancy term for either they're going to foreclose on you or they're going to do a loan modification, right? So that's their loss mitigation because they're investors. At the end of the day, they're investors. So it's mitigating their loss. The best way to do it is maybe a foreclosure, short sale, or a loan mod, right? So they're saying that they need to get their shit together. And that's a quote.
That was in the article.
He actually said that. And they need to be reaching out to borrowers more. They need to be educating borrowers. They need to be getting ready to go ahead and help these people that are falling further and further behind and that are not filing for these things. And then on this other article, also Housing Wire is a great resource for anybody that is looking for real estate
we have like
news.
4 or 5 articles from that one.
I love that site. They have some really good, and they tend to be kind of unbiased. Like they're just what I think we try to do, right? Is even though we may sound biased, but we're just biased towards what we consider to be just common sense. Like we want the economy to be strong. We want people to fend for themselves and businesses to survive. You know, how crazy of us. But anyway, this next article is HUD extends waivers for FHA and reverse mortgages. So you have the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, announced on Wednesday a series of temporary waivers that will allow servicers to use alternative methods when servicing FHA insured forward and reverse mortgages. So forward mortgages are just mortgages. Regular mortgages.
I was going to say, like, what is a forward mortgage?
Yeah, well, I assumed I knew what it was, but then I was like, let me just Google that shit because I was like, is this something new? But I think it's just so they can say reverse. They use the word forward.
Yeah.
Forward mortgages.
Just regular mortgage. Just mortgage.
Yeah. So rather than conducting face-to-face, HUD is making a lot of substitutions to do phone interviews, video calling services, and other conference technologies to conduct interviews with borrowers of FHA insured mortgages, reverse or forward mortgages, when performing early default interventions, specifically for borrowers in danger of foreclosures. So all the servicers, FHA, HUD, everybody is coming together and they're anticipating a massive surge of people needing help. They're saying, like, we need to hire more people. We need to put systems in place. We need to figure out how to streamline this to do the loss mitigation. This means that we need to be able to conduct foreclosures virtually. We need to be able to,
my God.
Yeah, like they're looking at like streamlining and speeding this up. So when this shit hits, they're not waiting on all these people that just keep getting further and further behind. And because of that, and obviously that's starting to happen, HUD is also waiving the $5,000 property charge payment arrearages. That's an interesting one. Cap for reverse mortgage borrowers who are behind on their payments. So what that means is that before there was a cap, like if you went over $5,000, so when a borrower fails to make 2 consecutive payments on a home equity conversion mortgage repayment plan, the plan fails and servicers may only offer the borrower a new repayment plan. If the borrower's total arrearage is less than $5,000, so the new waiver will allow the servicer to evaluate impacted borrowers regardless of how far behind they are. So we talk about this a lot in this show, right? The point of all of this is to look at the trends that are developing, right? And that's when you read these articles, what is the trend that we're seeing? Again, the servicers, FHA, HUD, everybody is expecting a massive spike in distress because they're seeing the numbers. They're seeing how many people are behind on their payments. They're seeing the percentages of people that have missed more than 90 days, but they're not in forbearance. You understand? So they're seeing all these numbers and they're like, we're going to have a huge issue as soon as this kind of thing stops, if it ever stops, of postponing foreclosures and all of this. When that happens, the servicers are covering their ass right now. They're like, loss mitigation to the max.
Well, and it's also going back to the articles we talked about of like this new stimulus package and not including money for renter assistance to get money to the people that actually own these homes. They're just saying like, we're just going to extend these things to where pushing the pain onto the quote unquote investors, your mom and pop shops that don't have the liquidity capital like we've talked about. And like, that's probably where this is going to come from, is it's over leveraged landlords that are in these areas where tenants haven't been paying or aren't paying, and taking this unemployment and be like, or have very loose, loose laws for tenants and landlords, to where it's like here in Texas, San Antonio, it's like, even if they're not paying, like there's a process that they have to really go through in order to not get evicted. It's not just, oh, I don't want to pay, even though I have the money, not going to do it. Yeah. So some of the other places, I'm sure. Dora, you had another article in here about the roof could cave in the San Antonio housing market.
Yeah, so
and I think that ties into this a little bit about what they're expecting. Because like the article put in, there's like not a single city was in California off the article, but it's like that's hilarious where this problem starts.
Honestly, like we talked about it a little bit yesterday, that I feel like this was a clickbait kind of headline, that the roof could cave in on the San Antonio housing market, study warns. So it's kind of funny because out of the 40 cities, 7 of them were in Texas and none in California. I was like,
where home prices are extremely high and the economy's been locked down,
and people are leaving in mass amounts of, just millions of, I don't know, millions, but a lot of people are leaving. Well, probably millions. They have a lot of people. But the study shows San Antonio among 40 U.S. cities that could be facing a faltering housing market, one largely triggered by the pandemic. All 40 are among the 200 largest cities. States such as Texas, for example, are disproportionately represented with 7 cities. California, on the other hand, doesn't have a single, despite the population of nearly 40 million in some of the most expensive housing markets in America. Although today's housing market is largely hot, experts are bracing for a wave of evictions triggered by pandemic-related disruptions that they fear could be the catalyst for a different kind of housing crisis that could rival even the dreariest days of the Great Recession, all with the COVID-19 still far from contained. So
seems very one-sided article when you look at like the economic data of like where people are moving. You look at those U-Haul rates, like where economies are growing and where they're shrinking. And they're saying like, oh, nope, those places that are growing have all those people and all those jobs and all those companies being relocated to, they're going to have the housing crisis. Not the places that people are leaving that can't get out to work and are so expensive they can't even afford to buy anything. Like, no, they're not going to have a problem. Like, that's just like, okay.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things that like you can't just read one article. You gotta look at the overall picture of the economy and kind of gauge yourself what is that going to mean. But for its studies, they went to gobankingrates.com, combed through the data from the U.S. Census Bureau, which I was actually interested to see if we can use these factors for the next market update to kind of see what data they provide. But the U.S. Census Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and Realty Track, and examine factors such as mortgage delinquencies, foreclosures, and homeowner and rental vacancy rates. The study showed 3.6% of mortgages in San Antonio were 30 to 89 days delinquent, and 1% were at least 90 days delinquent. So 89 days and 1% was 90 days.
That's what I was like I don't understand this article we're saying, and then like they end it with like the city is among one of the country's most popular places for millennial home buyers and is increasingly heralded as a top city for tech companies looking to relocate from the east and west coast. And, like,
and
how did you
not
spin
just that, but like we are still one of the most affordable cities in Texas, right? The cost of living, everything is substantially lower than all the other major metros. So it's just something that you got to look at these articles. And to me, like I said, I think it's a lot of clickbait. They say the foreclosure rate the foreclosure rate is 1 in every 8,100 homes, and the homeowner vacancy rate is 1.9%. I'm just like, I don't get it. So the 7 Texas cities are San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Killeen
Amarillo.
Amarillo.
Not armadillo.
Yeah, well, no, I was gonna say Amarillo, but Amarillo.
It's American.
El Paso, Brownsville, and Laredo.
What's that? El Paso?
It's an American accent.
No.
El Paso.
No, it's El Paso.
Dude, it's El Paso. Stop it.
Okay.
I want my queso with my tortillas. So yeah, so you look at articles like this, and it's just kind of like, guys, look at the whole market. Look at everything, because I think, again, these are clickbait articles that's like, you're really not saying.
Well, it seems
anything.
like it's like, even though it's done by like, what was it, SanAntonioCulture.com or something like that. Like,
yeah,
how did you spin that at all to say, oh, this wave of evictions? It's like, evictions doesn't create home sales.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only thing that's going to bring the market down is if buyers stop buying and companies stop relocating here. But when you look at things, it's like, I really don't see that slowing down anytime soon, to where, like Abbott's talked about, is like the number of companies that I've been talking to that are wanting to move to Texas, to where, what was it, from 2010 to 2020, it was like 200 of them had moved here.
Yeah.
But like in the last year and a half, there was like 90 of them. Whereas in the last amount of time, like moving here, it's like, okay, I don't see where you're getting at and how you're making that spin off to where it's going to be a housing crisis, but
it's nuts.
But I guess I could define a housing crisis like, oh my God, they can spin the article like there's 20% more inventory in the market. Yeah, when you're starting at 2%, like in months of inventory, and you have, or 2 months of inventory, that extra 20% is like, that's 2.5 months.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, again, the amount, like we talked about before. People are complaining how expensive houses are, right? So you have people complaining about how expensive houses are. That means that, why are they going to be foreclosed on, right? A lot of these people have more than enough equity on these properties.
Yeah.
That, yeah, they might be forced to sell, right, and downsize. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to probably move to a rental. Because right now, what you got to look at as far as what to invest in is, if you can rent a house, updated or in great conditions, and it's less than your mortgage, most people are going to do that. You understand? Because that's kind of where we're going right now, because rents take a while to catch up to rising prices, because rents are year-long leases, right? And sometimes, like ourselves, that we have tenants that do 2-year leases, 18-month leases, right? So, and then when it's time to renew, sometimes we had a discussion the other day of like, should we increase it, not increase it? Like, yes, it makes financial sense, but a point that you brought up, it's like, well, it might make financial sense, but does it make, sense as far as risking losing the tenant, having a turnover, right? So it's a lot of things you got to consider. So maybe we don't raise the rents. That also affects the market. So you have all of these things. So rents are, everywhere we're looking at them, they are pretty freaking low compared to what it would cost to buy that house and have a mortgage.
A lot of places, it's still cheaper to rent than to service a mortgage in a lot of the country.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. But tee up another article for you is like, but you got your iBuyers that you can sell everything to.
iBuyers?
Yeah, the open door revenue. How it plummeted 45% in 2020.
Yeah. So Open Door, one of these awesome businesses that we love. Revenue plummeted 45% in 2020. iBuyer looks to raise $700 million because they're so optimistic. I mean, it's like, we're good, guys. Come on. We just take another round of easy money from these silly investors and we'll prop up the stock prices.
Well, I mean, they're taking advantage of a overly inflated market with a lot of extra cash, where they're like, you put in here, they're trying to raise $600 million through the public markets, like at all-time highs. And this euphoria that's in the market, betting on these random speculative things, like, yeah, that's how they survive. But it goes back to the same thing. Like, you're creating zombie companies that they're selling money just to trying to stay alive when they're losing. I mean, they lost 45% year over year. And it's like, I'm curious how much money they net lost over the year. Yeah, their revenue dropped 45%. It's just like,
well, it's a Ponzi scheme essentially, because they're taking the money from new investors to keep the business pretty much going, to keep giving the returns to the old investors. And it's like, you're not generating revenue. You are borrowing revenue,
Yeah.
You understand? You're taking in revenue. So this 600 million that they're trying to raise is to be able to provide more stock options for people to buy, because they feel that with this 600 million and the stock options and everything dumping into the market, they think that they can raise a little over $700 million to help fund their speculation. And they say the main purpose of this offering is to increase capitalization and financial flexibility. Of course, we need to be flexible. In addition, we plan to continue investing in 2021 to double the market we serve. So it's double down. Eventually, the economies of scale, or eventually we just become too big that we own too many properties that if we fail, we tank the housing market.
Yeah.
So they're kind of hedging themselves, like saying, guys, we just need to buy enough properties where the government needs to step in and take care of us. Because it's going to be like, well, okay, but we have X number of inventory. What are you going to do? Right? So Open Door forecasts revenues of $10 billion by 2023 by gaining 4% of the U.S. housing market. It could become a $50 billion company. Yeah.
When you have drastically overestimated, like you're going to get 4% of the housing market off of your model when you lose billions of dollars every year. Just trying to gain enough traction and systemize everything at the vertical integration of companies for probably mortgages, title services, everything. They're like, wow.
And, when you have massive checks written to you with no worries of failing, sky's the limit.
Yep.
What's really stopping you from becoming a massive company? It's like, well, there is no risk. All we have to do is just do another round of funding. And
raise more money. Just go out and get more money.
We're hashtag blessed, so we're good to go. And then kind of touching on these crazy companies. The next article is, oh, damn you, Business Insider. So I could have sworn I added the other article. But anyway.
That was very exacerbated. I was like, man, did everything just crash? What happened? Like,
no,
an article made you mad.
Freaking, because now everything we have to have literally a subscription to damn near every news site, because now every story is paid.
Oh yeah, because now you got these privacy issues coming out with Apple and stuff. They got to get the revenue somewhere else. They can't sell data anymore. They got to get the revenue somewhere else. So,
you and your conspiracy theories.
That tees up an article for you.
But, I wanted to cover this one first. So Robinhood makes hundreds of millions of dollars from selling customer orders. That business model is about to come into focus. So Robinhood's whole model is they offer free stocks and options trading, because usually any other platform, they charge you to trade, they charge you per trade and all that. Instead of generating revenue from trading commissions as brokerages have done in the past, Robinhood led the charge in making money from what's called payment for order flow, PFOF. PFOF.
Make an acronym for everything.
POF. Robinhood sells its customers buy and sell orders directly to the market making firms such as Citadel Securities, Virtue, and Two Sigma, as opposed to going to the trading venue. High-profile VC investor Bill Gurley called the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to ban the POF, describing, if somebody knows how to pronounce that, I'm free to learn, describing it as a key issue in the so-called plumbing of the financial markets. In the fourth quarter of 2020, Robinhood received more than $221 million in POF. PFOF.
POF Anonymous?
Damn you! For equities and options flow. According to the data collected by Piper Sandler from regulatory filings, the amount was larger than competitors' E-Trade. So Robinhood did 221, E-Trade did 107, Charles Schwab did 63, but TD Ameritrade did 322. The difference being TD Ameritrade did 322. What's that, like about 50% more?
$322 million. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
21.
Million. Yeah, just
They
left 50%
so they
more.
made 50% more, but sold more than twice as much volume to the market makers than Robinhood. So they made 50% more by doing twice the volume. So Robinhood is making a good killing on this. My
Well, it's a
thing is
volume
like
game. They're undercutting the market, doing twice the volume, but doing it at half the cost.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm entrepreneurship,
Capitalism,
right?
but it's also,
The
are they
thing
making
is
money
like
doing that?
you're pissing off big money by doing this shit, right? And
Yep.
especially with all the by having these low barriers of entry, we kind of go into the whole thing with wholesalers, how they kind of screw up the real estate market, and Robinhood is kind of like the wholesaler of the stock market. If they succeed to push the SEC to ban PFOF, PFOF, that essentially puts Robinhood out of business.
Well, that's their only form of business, so it's like, oh, you got a problem. But that's the thing we always talk about. It's like they just gotta take enough market share to gain enough power to where they can't do that, because they'll spin it in a way that look how many beginning new investors are able to enter the stock market for the first time. They've never been able to do it before because of the things that we're doing.
Yeah,
we are good for the market. We're good for the common person. We're good for the thing. Even though it's our traders that were able to run up GameStop stock and be able to do all this extra stuff that they did. So
well, now, I mean, you saw them. We don't have the article or anything, but they're pushing silver. They're going after pretty much anything that they want, whatever they feel. Hey, we can fuck with the economy here. Let's do it.
Well, eventually they're gonna. It can't go on forever, because all the people that bought in GameStop late, or they're just running out of gas. It's like, for all the money that they're putting in, like the people that are starting this thing are taking it and seeing how many times they can do that, but they're the ones winning. And all the little guy with the $600 check that bought at GameStop 300, saying it's going to go to 1,000, and now it's back under like $70. So where it's like, but you can't keep. You're going to run out of that money eventually. Well, I mean, I guess you get another round of stimulus out here, they can do it again.
Exactly. So I did want to. We're gonna start wrapping up now, because I have to shoot downtown, south side now, to go look at a house.
You can drive. You don't shoot.
Why? Fun. You go driving with the windows down, like, yeah. But anyway, we have this. You talk about like there aren't any decent people left on this world and all this. Nobody cares about anybody. But the stories like this that really make me really emotional. It's something
this is what gets you emotional.
It touches me very deep down in that little crevice I have of my heart. It's just so impactful that we have people like this. So Democrats unveil a plan to provide every American child with a $1,000 savings account that can be accessed at age 18. I mean, oh my God. This guy, Nobel Peace Prize. Can we go ahead and just put this guy on the Hall of Fame for charitable donations? So you have Senator Cory Booker. I can't stand this guy. Every time I see him talk, I'm like, you seem like such a douche. But anyway, at age 18, the person could access their funds for a specific purpose, such as attending college, buying a home, or starting a business, if you even are allowed to start businesses in 18 years. The program would cost $60 billion a year, and it would be offset, okay, by hiking estate taxes and closing tax breaks for wealthy Americans.
Oh, so close the tax breaks. Close the tax break.
Well,
okay.
What we talk about is every time they talk about wealthy Americans, you're talking about mostly high income earning employees, not the rich, not the rich that you think. You're affecting a lot of people on this, and they keep lowering the bracket of what wealthy means in this country. So in a country as wealthy as ours, every person should have access to economic opportunity and the chance to build assets and create wealth. We talked about it before. We definitely do have access to it. It's just not free. You gotta work. Weird thing, apparently. The plan was co-sponsored by Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Dick Durbin, Double D, of Illinois. Booker and Presley are pushing to fold the proposal into Biden's $1.9 trillion plan. Back when Trump was president, that he kept fighting the stimulus that the Democrats were trying to push, is because he's like, we're not, you're adding more shit in here that has nothing to do with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Adding $1,000 to all kids being born, not really necessary during the pandemic, especially when they can't touch it for 18 years. When it comes to racial justice, here's how they're going to get it through. We can't afford to wait. As we emerge from this dark period of our nation's history, baby bonds is exactly the type of universal race-conscious program necessary to build our economy back better. And you have J.P. Freire, a representative of the Republican side of the House Ways and Means Committee, criticized Booker, and he tweeted, "The best path out of poverty is a job. This measure is a job killer." So, kind of going into how amazing, all these things are, and we're the government, we're here to help kind of thing. That's like, you're kind of too stupid to take care of yourself. So we know what's good for you. All right. So we're going to give you $1,000. We're going to put it, it's going to be savings. So we're probably going to put it somewhere where it gains interest, and it takes care of maybe the banks, maybe the stock market, because how is it gaining interest, right? Where is that money being put?
Well, that's what I said, like where it's always invested, stuff like that. So like $1,000, say, okay, you give somebody $1,000 a day. You let inflation chip away at it at a compounding interest rate, or compounding over 18 years. So that $1,000 is really like, hey, here's $500. Here's less than $500. Here's $400 to go to college. Like, that ain't going to do shit.
No.
So it's like, what are you going to do? Like, you got to be able to do something with it. Because I've heard many proposals like this, like, hey, putting $1,000 for every child, it isn't a bad idea in the sense that when they do graduate, they can get off to a good start. But it's like, but you have to put a stipulation on what that money can use for. It's not just, hey, here's $18,000. You can go do with it. You gave me 18 grand as at 18 or thousands of dollars at 18. Like, I would have blown that.
Well, they are saying that, it has to be used for college, to start a business or buy a home.
Yeah, but what's starting a business nowadays?
A Robinhood account.
Yeah.
And
I'm starting a new financial management.
A TikTok account.
Exactly.
But my thing is, like, we go back to personal accountability. My issue with all this, right? It's that we're gonna take care of your kids. Here, we're gonna think for you. Here, we're gonna take care of all this.
Not gonna educate them on how to use the money.
And $60 billion, okay, because they're awesome at their projections. They're never way off.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna cost a lot more than that. And then where's the $60 billion going? You understand? Like, where's it being invested into for these kids?
It's another way to prop up the stock market, where it's like the case and stuff like that. It's to take money, put it in the market to keep it going up. Which, I mean, that's psychology, and that, like, you're adding $60 billion to the market every single year, or it would over time continue to go up and up and up, to where they say it's like, you really can't beat the stock market. Just put the money in there and let it ride. Like, it's going to go up over time, because
don't speculate, right? Don't put it on a company or anything. Put it on an index fund, track an index. And disclaimer, we are not financial advisors, accountants, lawyers, attorneys, doctors, vets, personal trainers. Please do your due diligence, use your brain. But yeah, I mean, you hear things like this, and it just goes back to the same thing. Let's just keep eliminating personal accountability. Let's keep eliminating, people thinking for themselves, people being held responsible to take care of their kids and their families, where it's like, don't worry, we got you, and just crazy. So to wrap up, because we gotta get going, look at the trends that are being formed on this. Like we talked about earlier, we have, all the major servicers of loans and everything, they're preparing for a big issue, high call volumes of people saying, hey, I'm going to lose my house. I can't make up payments. All of this. So the stress is real. And a point that we covered with a friend of ours in a mastermind session was that he made a really good point. He says, yes, at the end of it, they're going to do loan modifications, but you still need to qualify to still even just take care of the current mortgage.
Yeah.
And the amount of small businesses, remember that they make up 50% of the employment in the U.S. that are going out of business. a lot of these people,
Gotta be able to afford
it's
it.
going to get to the end that it's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do a loan mod, but you can't even afford the mortgage as it is. So these people, they're going to have to sell those houses.
Yeah. I was like,
you know?
any amount of spending, I think it's like, it's not going to just solve the problem of just blanketing money everywhere.
No.
Or like, it could, but it could very easily not doing it as well. It's like, where's the next recession? It following the pandemic of just like, yeah, you decimated the small business, which is 50% of your employment, who all these people went out and bought houses while they were employed.
Yeah.
And now you create this huge problem again, where it's like, at that point, what do you do? Like, you can bail out banks, but now you're individuals. Like, you just added more bloat on top of more bloat on top of more bloat, to where like that could be something that could happen. But
yeah, and you have
don't
to,
know.
as an investor, have to understand these trends. This is when rental income is going to be amazing. Owning rentals is going to be amazing, because when mortgages are so expensive and rents can't keep up, renting a house is going to be much better, much more affordable.
To get new with somebody else and they're paying. That's the other problem. As long as you can get the non-paying person out and get a paying person in, then you're all right.
Oh, you still got to, you still got to buy rent. Well, it's what we talked about before. In San Antonio, we're seeing it more and more, where you are going to have to leave some money tied up in these properties. But the great thing is that the appreciation it's amazing. And then at the same time, you have cash flow, and you have a dependable cash flow, because as prices keep going up, and then you have that $15,000 that they're trying to put out, home buyer credit, and then a point that you made last week on to become a first-time home buyer, all you need is 3 years after you've owned the home, and you become a first-time home buyer again, right?
Haven't owned a home, yeah.
Yeah, that you haven't owned a home, you become a first-time home buyer again, so you'll qualify for that $15,000. You know, it's gonna keep pushing prices up. Yeah. You know, we keep having lower inventory, more people refinancing, less people wanting to sell their homes. Prices are gonna keep going up, so you got to get in. You got to get in. The more you wait, the more expensive it's going to be to cash flow.
Yep.
So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Coffee with the Johns. I love the chat. Sorry if I didn't bring a lot of your comments in. We were kind of rushing through. There was a lot to cover. But I love the conversations going on in here. Brian, Tommy, Val, Molly. You guys have been crushing it. Great contributions, and thank you all for watching and sharing. And if you enjoyed it, just hit that little like button on our videos. It really, when you hitting that little like, it just puts it warms my heart up, you know, and my heart is kind of cold, so it needs some heat. Right. But it helps us out a lot. We put in a lot of work to do all of this to help you guys and create these dialogues. So just getting that little thumbs up really helps us get the word out even more and spreading the love. So I really appreciate you guys for doing this. And like always, we're, Super Bowl this weekend. So for anybody using your stimmy checks for betting on the Super Bowl, good luck.
There you go.
Go Brady. And and we will see you next week. We will catch you all on the next week's episode.